All right, so picture this Friday Night Lights, the Ekana Cricket Stadium, Lucknow, April 4th, 2025. And the Lucknow Supergiants just pulled off a pretty dramatic win over the Mumbai Indians, a 12-run victory. I mean, talk about a nail-biter.
Absolutely. And, you'd think the excitement would end there with that final score, right? But you flagged a few articles for us that suggest the real drama was just getting started off the field as the celebrations died down.
Exactly. And it's not every day you see both the captain and one of the rising stars of a team in hot water with the BCCI at the same time.
Right. Fines, penalties, official reprimands, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And, the captain, Rishabh Pant, getting penalized. Well, that's one thing. But what really jumped out at me was this young bowler, Digvesh Singh. And this wasn't his first run-in with the authorities, shall we say.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about his now infamous wicket celebration, right? The one that's got everyone talking and debating. And I think you wanted to get right to the facts of what went down, why it matters, and what it all really means. So let's get into it, shall we?
Let's do it. So first things first, let's break down why Rishabh Pant, the LSG captain, ended up with a 12 lakh rupee fine.
Right to the point. Well, it all comes down to the pace of the game, or rather, the lack of it.
Right.
The Lucknow Supergiants were simply taking too long to get through their overs, and that's a no-no in the IPL rulebook.
Exactly. It's all there in Article 2.22 of the IPL Code of Conduct. And the idea is pretty straightforward. They want to keep the game moving, keep the energy up, both for the players and the viewers.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to watch the clock tick away endlessly, right? Plus, there's a fairness aspect to it, too.
Yeah.
They're making sure both teams have a fair shot at completing their overs within the allotted time.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, imagine you're at home or even in the stadium, and the game just drags on and on. That excitement you were talking about, it can fizzle out pretty quickly.
Right. And look, 12 lakh rupees is a hefty sum, no doubt about it. But in the context of the IPL and for a first-time overrate offense for a captain, it's actually the standard penalty.
So it's like a set tariff for a slow overrate. Okay, so that's Pence side of things. Pretty clear-cut. But let's move on to the more, well, let's say the more visually interesting case, shall we, Digvesh Singh Rathi? What a story he's been so far this season.
He has been, hasn't he, signed by Lucknow for 30 lakh rupees, which starting to look like an absolute bargain. The guy's just 25 years old, a leg spinner with a knack for taking 6 wickets in 4 matches, and an economy rate that's got everyone talking. He's definitely one to watch.
Yeah, a real breakout star, but as you hinted at, it's not just his bowling that's making headlines. He's got this signature move, shall we say, after taking a wicket that's, well, it's certainly unique.
Unique is one way to put it, most definitely. Yeah. So for those who haven't seen it, picture this. Digvesh takes a wicket and then proceeds to mime, pulling out a notebook, scribbles something down with an imaginary pen, and gives the departing batsman a little look, shall we say.
Yeah, a look that could mean a lot of things, depending on how you interpret it. And it turns out the match referees weren't too thrilled about it either. It's actually based on a celebration popularized by West Indies bowler Kesrick Williams. So it's not entirely original, but Digvesh is definitely putting his own spin on it.
And that's where the trouble started. The first incident was back on April 1st during the match against Punjab Kings. Digvesh dismisses Priyansh Arya and whips out the imaginary notebook.
And boom, that's when the match referee steps in and decides this little performance constitutes a level 1 breach of the IPL Code of Conduct, specifically Article 2.5, which is all about avoiding any actions that could be deemed aggressive or demeaning towards your opponent.
And that level 1 breach comes with a price tag, a 25% fine of his match fee, which in this case amounted to 1,087,500 rupees. Not exactly pocket change, especially for a newcomer, plus he gets a demerit point added to his record.
Ouch. Yeah, that's got to sting a bit. But hey, maybe it was just a rookie mistake. You know, high on the adrenaline, maybe he just got caught up in the moment.
You'd hope so, right? But fast forward to the Mumbai Indians match on April 4th. Same story, different victim. This time it's Naman Thir, who's sent packing courtesy of Digvesh's bowling. And what does he do? Yep. There comes the notebook again, the sequel nobody asked for.
You'd think he'd have learned his lesson, right? But clearly not. And this time the authorities weren't messing around. They doubled down on the penalty.
Oh, yeah. They did a 50% match fee fine this time, a whopping 3,075,000 rupees, plus 2 more demerit points added to his tally. The message was clear. The IPL means business when it comes to player conduct.
So let's do the math here. 1,087,500 rupees for the first offense, plus 3,075,000 for the repeat performance. That brings us to a grand total of 5,062,500 rupees in fines in the space of just a few days. That's going to be some kind of record, right?
It certainly puts him in a league of his own as far as fines go for this season, and it really highlights how seriously they're taking this whole celebration issue. But, amidst all this talk about fines and penalties, there was this really interesting tidbit I came across online.
Oh, yeah, the rumor mill was working overtime on this one. People were throwing around some wild figures. Some even said he got slapped with a 50 lakh rupee fine, which, let's be honest, seemed a bit outlandish.
Right, completely out of proportion. And it turns out it was all a big misunderstanding. That 50 lakh figure stemmed from people misinterpreting the 50% of his match fee fine.
Yeah.
It's amazing how quickly misinformation can spread, especially on social media.
Yeah, it's like a game of telephone gone wrong. So just to set the record straight, Digvesh has been fined a significant amount, yes, but he hasn't lost his entire IPL earnings for the season.
Exactly. And it's a good reminder to always double check those sensational headlines.
Yeah.
Sometimes the reality is a bit more nuanced now, going back to Article 2.5. And that whole idea of avoiding provocative or demeaning actions. I was wondering why exactly the notebook celebration falls under that umbrella.
Yeah, I mean, is it really that big of a deal? Some people might see it as just a bit of harmless fun, a way to let off some steam.
Well, it all comes down to interpretation and context.
Yeah.
You see, Digvesh might think it's all in good spirits. But imagine you're the batsman walking back to the pavilion after getting dismissed, and you see the bowler mimicking, writing your name down, and giving you that look. It could easily be perceived as rubbing salt in the wound, like
Right.
adding insult to injury.
Okay. Yeah, I can see how that could rub some players the wrong way, especially in a high pressure environment like the IPL where emotions are already running high.
Exactly. And, the match referees are there to ensure a certain level of sportsmanship and respect is maintained on the field. And this celebration, it could be seen as crossing that line.
And then there's the whole demerit point system, which is where things get really serious for Digvesh.
Yeah.
He's already accumulated 3 demerit points, and if he gets one more within a 36-month period, he's looking at an automatic one-match suspension.
Exactly. 4 strikes and you're out, essentially. And that would be a huge blow for him and for the Lucknow Super Giants, especially considering how well he's been performing.
Talk about pressure. I mean, every wicket he takes now comes with this added weight of knowing one wrong move, and he's benched for a crucial game.
Absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see how he handles that pressure moving forward. Will he tone down the celebrations or stick to his guns and risk the consequences? It's a real dilemma, and it's sparked a lot of debate among fans and players alike.
Yeah, I was reading some comments from Shardul Thakur, one of Digvesh's teammates, and he actually came out in support of him, saying things like Digvesh has character and that players should be allowed to express themselves.
Right, and that's a valid point too.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line between maintaining decorum and allowing players to show their personality, have a bit of fun?
Exactly, because at the end of the day, the IPL is entertainment, and these celebrations, they can add to the spectacle, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's a balancing act for sure. And the BCCI, they're obviously trying to strike that balance between upholding the spirit of the game and keeping things exciting for the fans.
And it's not just about celebrations either. It seems like the BCCI is cracking down on slow overgrades across the board this season. Rishabh Pant's fine wasn't an isolated incident.
You're right. There have been a number of captains penalized for the same reason, which suggests a renewed focus on keeping the games moving at a good pace.
So it's a trend we're seeing, and it'll be interesting to see if this stricter approach continues throughout the tournament.
It definitely will. And, with Digvesh's case, it's almost become a symbol of this larger debate about player conduct and what's acceptable on the field. You have those who think his celebration is disrespectful and unsportsmanlike, and then you have those who see it as harmless fun, a bit of personality that adds to the entertainment value.
Exactly. And where you stand on that issue probably says a lot about how you view the game in general. Is it all about strict adherence to tradition, or is there room for a bit of flair and showmanship?
Right, and I think the BCCI, they're walking a tightrope here. They want to keep things exciting for the fans, but they also need to maintain a certain image for the league,
Uh-huh.
uphold those standards of sportsmanship.
So wrapping up, what are the key takeaways here for our listeners?
Well, first and foremost, the BCCI is not playing around when it comes to enforcing the rules, both in terms of pace of play and player conduct.
Absolutely. And then there's the ongoing saga of Digvesh Singh Rathi and his notebook celebration, which has cost him a hefty sum and put him on thin ice with those demerit points.
Right, one more slip up, and he's facing a suspension, which would be a major setback for both him and the Lucknow Super Giants.
So it's a story with real consequences, and it'll be fascinating to see how it all unfolds. And I think it raises a really important question for our listeners to ponder. Does this crackdown on celebrations like Digvesh's ultimately make the IPL better or worse?
It's a tough one. Is it all about respecting the traditions of the game, or is there room for a bit more personality, a bit more showmanship that might actually draw more fans in.
A question with no easy answers and one that we'll likely be debating for a while to come.
Absolutely. And hopefully this deep dive has given everyone a better understanding of the complexities at play here, the rules, the incidents, the various perspectives, and what it all means for the future of the IPL.
And as always, we'll be keeping a close eye on developments as the season progresses, so stay tuned, folks. The story's far from over.
Not by a long shot.